He says we need to protect things that the intention of the Endangered Species Act was to propagate the survival or enhance the survival of these species, so they don't all die. And excuse me. So even Ted Cruz recognizes that these captive held animals are not entitled to the protection of our federal government.
Which makes complete sense, because it's like, why is our taxpayer dollars protecting animals that are not indigenous?
Yeah, and they just came in and they just seized a shitload of hybrids, ligers and teligers. And we have one of the recordings, Matt Bryant encouraging me to sell hybrid cubs to James Garretson to take on the road as a cub petting thing. And I was pissed, and because I'm like, Matt, I've already told you this guy is an asshole when it comes to cubs. He said he picks them up by the scruff and he pretends like he's Tarzan. I said, I don't like my animals handled that way. I said, please, with all due respect, don't ask me to sell or provide James Garretson with any cubs, because I'm not going to do it. And I think he was really, really petitioning for me to give James some cubs, so James could go on the road and make money. Because James, effectively, Matt had shut down James's operation of the illegal credit card scam, because James couldn't get away with anything while he's cooperating with the feds. So Matt, I think, was trying to help him create a source of income by me giving him cubs or selling him cubs. Yeah, it's crazy. Especially when I hear him saying in here that Joe went on the road. He didn't say Joe went on the road with his magic act, which is what it was. It was a magic act. He says he went on the road
Who are you reviewing?
This is John. This is Matt's grand jury testimony. He says this is how did he know Learned Joe. He says he operated a zoo or a park, and in addition to that, he also had a traveling cub petting business. That's not really what it was. It was a traveling zoo. I mean, a traveling magic act. Mm-hmm. And during the off part of his magic act, when he wasn't performing his stage show, they would have cages where you could interact with monkeys and lemur and tigers, baby tigers. So, but Matt calls it a cub petting business because that's how that incites people.
Right.
And that's what PETA does. We're all roadside zoos, but
it's like every single facility, whether you're AZA or not, you are a roadside zoo. If they want to use that derogatory word or whatever, because you got to go right off the road.
So then Matt goes on to say, we don't. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has very little to do with the actual zoo and his possession of those animals, provided he is possessing them in accordance with USDA permits. That's not true. You don't have to be, as we've established, you don't have to be USDA to have a lion or a tiger in Oklahoma or anywhere. It's based on the local municipalities in the states. It's like the state of Las Vegas right now has a bill introduced to ban private possession of big cats, but this is not true.
If I'm correct, I think your county can even trump state.
Yeah, the state can permit them, but your county can.
Your county might
just
not
through a
want
county
to.
ordinance, they can prohibit dangerous animals, be it a pit bull or be it a tiger.
It's like your county next to you might
But Matt
allow
was
it.
definitely
City one, as long as there's a
right.
legitimate.
Matt is definitely leading. He's giving false information right here, whether he realizes it or not. But nothing he said on that page is true. So right here it says, so is it Fish and Wildlife Service's jurisdiction to look at the animal welfare and how they're being cared for and the health of animals? He says that would be more of a USDA issue, and their veterinarians are the ones that do routine inspections of these permitted facilities. You said you started an investigation in 2016. What initially brought Mr. Model to your attention, Fish and Wildlife? Answer, claims that he was illegally moving tigers in interstate commerce for profit. Moving or selling?
See,
Because you
there's
can move
a
'em.
difference.
If you're USDA licensed, you can move them any place you want. Selling them is another matter. During the course of your investigation into wildlife trafficking, see, he didn't say wildlife trafficking. He didn't say it. He said, what brought him to your attention is his claims that he was illegally moving tigers in interstate commerce.
And a
Okay,
public
interstate
defender isn't
commerce-
gonna be caught up on this stuff in days. Like, I mean, this is,
Right,
that's
he
my
studied
one
this.
thing that we're gonna ultimately have to find for the RICO Act, if not other case, somebody that knows this stuff.
Right.
I can learn it, but you
That's
gotta
what I
know
told
it.
them, pick their brains, because it's
Yeah.
hard to do it through Joe
Well,
when he's.
that's Joe, and then as much as Tim Stark's kind of
Yeah.
wingnut, he knows some of this
Right,
stuff.
he's been in it long. I mean,
And you learn by being sued.
Right.
You learn by going through
Yeah.
the process.
but it says claims that he was illegally moving tigers in interstate commerce. Okay, but Joe, it could also be argued that that interstate commerce was part of his authorized USDA activities, his magic show.
Right.
Going from state to state, doing cub petting could be considered interstate commerce, could it not? So
Yeah.
that's not an illegal movement. An illegal movement would be selling somebody a tiger in Illinois and you delivering it from Oklahoma. You're crossing state lines in order to profit from the sale of that tiger cub. That is a violation of the Lacey Act. So it has nothing to do with USDA. It's a violation of the Lacey Act. And during this course of your investigation into wildlife trafficking, did you then become aware in late 2016, early 17 of other criminal activities of Mr. Maldonado? Yes, I did. What types of criminal activities did you become aware of? Became aware of threats towards a lady by the name of Carol Baskin. Is that criminal activity? See, that's
Not
kind of
yet,
that's kind of
that's what
bad.
they
That's
got.
not suspected criminal activity. He's declaring him guilty of criminal activity
Other criminal activities,
because he became aware of threats.
which is probably First Amendment speech
Mhm.
at that
It's
stage.
protected at that point. Let's talk about Carol Baskin. Who is she and what does she do for a living? She operates Big Cat Rescue. It's an animal sanctuary. It's not an animal
She's
sanctuary. It's a
not
roadside
animal
zoo. She's a roadside zoo. It
I
charges
hate
36
it. I hate it. See, this is what pisses me off too, is when they just took our big cats, they're claiming it's going to a sanctuary. Sanctuaries are not open to the public. You can accept donations, but a true sanctuary is not open to the public. We, at our new place, were actually still considered a sanctuary because we
weren't
were not
open.
open to the public. We were still a private facility and people could come in and help, but we were not open to the public. And we were not accepting any type of money for people to see the animals.
No donations, nothing.
So,
But now they're sending our animals
to a
to Pat Craig
sanctuary
that charges
to make
$52.
money off of our
Yeah.
animals.
So Pat Craig now is rewarded. He's unjustly enriched by all of our animals because he'll charge $52 a head to come in and see all the Tiger King animals with the assistance of the USDA and federal government.
So gross.
I see your text. Oh my God, Ellen had sex with Ashley Webster. She lived in this trailer.
And then see what he said,
No more texting.
which was the first time he'd ever done that. I'm thinking, oh shit, this must be a hot.
Yeah, he
button.
called, he said, I remember he called me just shortly after, he says, they can, they were talking
Subpoena.
about, so they can subpoena my phone for text messages.
Which I don't even know that they have to subpoena if, I mean, that gets into the Brady stuff, which you know better than I do, but to some extent, witness
He
handling.
says you can't put that kind of stuff. He was a little perturbed because it's always on speaker when he calls. He was a little perturbed. He was, Lauren, you can't say that kind of stuff on a text message. He says, because Joe's attorneys have access to any of my text messages. So that was when he schooled us on, if you have something that's critical or sensitive, do not text it. So we were always afraid after that point, what do we share with text?
Right.
So you'll see a lot of the progression of our communication was, Matt, call me, ASP, 911, call me. So here's where they're talking about Ashley Webster. So, the question. So in February of 17 of last year, you were made aware that another person claimed that Mr. Maldonado was plotting Miss Baskin's murder. Answer, yes, I was. Question, how did you find this out? Answer, Ms. Baskin had received a voice message by someone by the name of Ashley. Had called her and left a voicemail talking about threats to Miss Baskin's life. This woman, identified as Ashley, said that she worked at the GW Animal Park, or GW Zoo as it's often called, and said that she had heard Joe Maldonado and others speaking about paying money to have her killed.
How long did she work there? 48 hours?
She worked
4
there
days.
4 days. We have her time cards, we have everything.
Oh yeah, I got her social security number. I have her signing everything, so I still have that folder if you want me to send it to you.
But fucking Alan, really, the hitman really is.
That's a big deal.
It is.
Yeah,
They're gonna say it's not, but it is.
yeah, because they could have,
They were living in the
Colluded.
same trailer
They could have
together.
colluded
and-
to-
yeah.
Because I mean, she only would have fucked him over those 4 days that she
yeah,
was
yeah,
describing.
that was that. And then she told us, I've got where did I see it? I saw it in your stuff. It's on your text messages to Matt, where you sent him screenshots of Ashley Webster up on one of those hate pages.
Oh,
And
yeah,
she was
the
like
girl
the
was saying
Beast,
that.
somebody,
Yeah.
her was a username. And she was claiming that Joe bought her a birthday cake, or
Yeah,
Joe took
did
me to
buy her
Walmart
a
because it's my
birthday
birthday. Joe took me to Walmart and bought me a birthday cake. He loves me, and he trusts in me. I'm thinking, you crazy bitch, you weren't
cake. Oh,
even
yeah,
there.
Katrina was there when I asked
Joe
her
wouldn't
about
get me a
this.
birthday cake. He's not gonna go get a woman
I don't see
a
him
birthday
doing that for
cake.
anybody.
So
Katrina, who was an older woman that worked for us, she said, she's like, I'm the one who
She's
took
still
her
not
to
bitching.
Walmart. She's the one who bought the birthday cake. She's the one who bought the candles and took it in front of Joe to get a photo. She's like, I'm the one that took her there for that. She's like, no, Joe never did that.
you almost gotta wonder if she wasn't sent there.
Did Ashley and Chelsea have a relationship?
Not that I know of that they ever met.
I don't think they ever met.
Because I never really met Chelsea until, I met her
We
because
saw her like kind of coming in and out of Joe's
she was
house.
Joe's maid. She was,
Even though it was her his niece. She's like
but
clean.
I don't think that I actually talked to Chelsea until
Oh.
after Joe was arrested.
Yeah. Yeah. Because Joe would always say such either negative things about Chelsea
About
or
her
Travis
husband or boyfriend or whatever
and
it
her
was.
husband. And so we just kind of try to stay out of all that family drama. That is a lot of family drama, and that's a mess.
So anyway, he says, okay, I'm going to play for you Grand Jury Exhibit 34, audio playing. So, Ms. Green, so this is the voicemail that Ms. Baskin's lawyers forwarded to you. Yes, ma'am. And this voicemail was sent on about February 19th, 2017. February 19th of
Does that sound
2017.
right?
I'm sorry, I'm not paying attention because I
Yeah,
can't
that
read.
could have been right, because I took over the park February the 12th of 2016. So this would have been a year into to the Greater Wynnewood Exotic Animal Park. Yes, ma'am. So what did you do to investigate this voicemail? Answer. Well, one, with the telephone number and the name, I was able to identify the person as Ashley Webster and contacted her and realized she was in Denver, Colorado. I believe it was Denver, Colorado at the time. So I went out there and interviewed her. Oh, so they didn't depose her.
They just
Yeah,
interviewed her.
which makes sense.
They interviewed her and then tried to enter that interview, the video interview, as a substitution to her actual physical testimony. But Matt I text Matt one time, I don't even remember what it was. And you'll see it on my phone. I text him and he goes, who is this? What do you mean, who is this? You forgot who I was already? And he says, oh, I thought I recognized the
The
way you
number.
speak or something, your number. He says, I got a new phone. So if you ever tried to subpoena Matt's phone records from the government, he has a whole new phone. So you need to go back and get the one that he had during this investigation, and not just the one that's in his possession now.
I haven't read this much since college. I'm just like,
He says, so what did she tell you? Pretty much the same thing that she had said in the voicemail. She said that she was in one of the facilities there with Joe and I believe Jeff Lowe and Lauren Lowe. And you weren't Lauren Lowe at the time. Oh wait, you would have been.
no,
No,
I
you
would not
wouldn't
have
have
been.
Jeff and Lauren Lowe were all in the same room, and the comment, Carol Baskin was discussed, and they called her, Matt stutters a lot. She said she was in one of the facilities
He's
there with,
nervous.
what?
He's nervous.
Right. With Joe and I believe Jeff Lowe and Lauren Lowe were all in the same room. And the comment, or Carol Baskin, was discussed, and they asked her if they could get $2,000 right now if she was willing to go do it. Question, and what did Miss Webster say? Answer, she was not interested in killing Miss Baskin. This bitch was never in a room having a conversation with us. We would never speak to, this is a stranger to us.
Joe would
If-
speak freely amongst the staff
page
about
is
wanting.
that?
This is page 31, 30 and 31.
Joe would say things in
That
front
whole
of staff.
thing never
Well,
happened.
you just said earlier he would never.
He would
Joe
never ask a
hated women.
female. He did not trust females. He absolutely did not trust females.
Did Mr. Webster tell you that there was drug use going on at the time during that conversation? Yes, she did. So we called her into a room and asked her to kill somebody, and we were using drugs.
Right.
Sounds like a party. Yes, she did. Did the FBI also assist in the following up with Ms. Webster? Yes, they accompanied me on the interview. So he took Andy.
Andy's the FBI agent.
Andy's the FBI. He must have taken Andy to Colorado with him. Question, are you aware that the FBI, that Ms. Webster had reported some of this to the Garvin County Sheriff? Answer, I was not aware. I was just going to just comment. She might have told me she reported it to the Garvin County Sheriff. I don't remember any official sheriff's report or anything that she supplied. Okay, and in that, okay, another note that you take down. We were pretty close with the Garvin County Sheriff there, named Larry Rhodes. And when we were in Larry Rhodes' office one time, he pointed down to a bookcase, and he says, "You see, those like folders, like," and he says, "That's my Joe Exotic file right there." He says, so they actually do have records of everything related to Joe because he left it to Sheriff Jim Mullet. He didn't. Larry Rhodes left all of that stuff. So if there was indeed a report made by Ashley Webster to the Garvin County, it would be in Jim Mullet's bookcase. Okay, and in that August of 17, did Ms. Baskin provide you with more information for your investigation? Yes, she did. What did she provide you? At this time, Ms. Baskin was nervous based on all the threats that she'd been receiving, and she received a couple of calls on her voicemail, but there was no voicemail attachment. Okay, that would be James Garrettson calling her because Joe had pissed us off so bad, and we found the computers that Joe claimed were burned up in the fire, and when I looked at them, it had all of his bankruptcy shit on it, which I knew she was challenging huge. She was accusing him of lying for his bankruptcy, trying to get him in trouble with federal courts. So I told James Garrettson, I said, I got to get away from this asshole. I just can't do this anymore. He goes, well, what do you want to do? And I said, you know Carol, right? I said, call Carol and let her know I'll hand all those computers over, hand her Joe on a silver platter for $500,000, and I'll give you $100,000 if you can get the sale done. I said, she can buy the zoo from me. It's in my name for $500,000. I said, that will save her all this legal shit. So he called her. We went outside on the park bench, outside, and I said also, tell her to stay off of she was using Google glasses and riding her bicycle to work every day. And that's where Joe and Travis and all these, Joe was planning her attack, one of his attacks. And that's when the ghillie suit came in. And I said, what the hell? He says, you can hide in the swamps with that thing. So I said, tell Carol to earn her trust. Tell Carol, don't ride that bicycle path alone. It's not safe. So we went out on the park bench outside of Applebee's, and he dialed up Carol's number and got the voicemail, and he just hung up. He didn't leave a voice message. So that's probably, but there was no voicemail attachment, but she recognized some of the numbers and the area code for some of the numbers being in this geographic location, so that caused her to be suspect. She contacted me. She says, I don't know who these people are. Here are the numbers that have been calling my office. I know James only made one call in my presence, and it was to her cell phone. It wasn't to
That's
the
because
rescue
I think
zone.
that's because I had her cell phone number.
Right. So I called what we refer to is just cold called them to see who they were. One number, no one ever answered. Another number, it was an 817 area code, if memory serves. He answered, and I just told him I was returning calls for Carol Baskins and just wanted to see what he had to say. At that time, there was some small dialogue, and I believe the initial phone call, I told him, I said, well, I'm in the area. I would like to meet with you and talk to you about what you had to tell Ms. Baskin. So this would have been Matt returning the hang-up call of James Garrison. So we set up a meeting date, and I met with him. And when I met with him, I identified myself as federal agent conducting a federal investigation. And at the time, the person I talked to seemed very relieved. And we had a fairly long interview at the time. He told me that he was calling Carol Baskin on behalf of Jeff Lowe. Question, okay. And was this person that you met with, that you called, and then ultimately met with, was that James Garrison? Answer, that was James Garrison. Question, so let's pick up where you stopped. You said you had called Carol Baskin on behalf of Jeff Lowe. And the grand jurors heard Mr. Garrison testify yesterday. But what was your understanding of why he called Carol Baskin? Answer, my understanding was that James Garrison was friends with Jeff Lowe and Joe Maldonado at the time. There was the relationship between Jeff and Joe was becoming a little strained. And I believe Jeff asked James to contact Carol Baskin to tell Carol Baskin that Jeff would copy all the computers and copy all the files at the office and basically serve the language they blank. The language they used was serve Joe to Carol Baskin with all of his baggage, and she could do with it what she wanted if she would just leave Jeff in the park alone. That's not accurate, because it was basically, you can have the park. You know, James Garrison was the source for the fake ID. I mean, we know that, right?
Right.
It was his contact at some print shop down in Dallas that was giving him the fake IDs for all of his false credit card IDs.
Yeah.
Like James would pull a picture of a Chinaman off of the internet, and it would build a Justin Chow ID, and he'd get state IDs. He couldn't get driver's licenses because they were too difficult, but he would get state IDs, one for Justin Chow, one for Corey Klang was another one, Corey Klang. And I actually have someplace in the shit you copied pictures of utility bills and insurance payments that James Garrettson was paying insurance to for car insurance for one of his employees that Lauren knows, and it came out of Corey Klang's PayPal account. And I said, because I want to show, hey, what was that girl that looked like you, that there's a picture of you and her in Bagheera?
Yeah,
She worked for James.
yeah, what about her?
James was paying her car insurance, right? Through the PayPal, which was Corey Klang or Justin Shaw or one of those
So,
guys.
yeah.
And we took pictures of that. She sent us pictures of that PayPal statement showing that James was paying her insurance through that bogus name. Anyway,